Have you heard of the organ thief? Imagine an ordinary night where you go out to have fun and suddenly wake up with no memory of anything, only to discover that a part of you has been taken. Sounds like fiction? Many think so until they become the next victim. This is not just another story to scare you. It touches on a real fear, the kind of fear we ignore, believing that this will never happen to me. But the truth is, the danger may be closer than we think, and ignoring it is like opening the door to the unknown. The solution: knowledge. Be aware, be prepared. Knowing these urban legends, like the organ thief, is not just a matter of curiosity. It's a way to protect yourself, to ensure your safety in a world that may be more dangerous than it appears. These are stories for lovers of horror, for those who know that sometimes the unknown is closer than we imagine. So, put on your headphones, turn off the lights, and tuck yourself in under the blanket. Let's begin. The nightmare of organ theft. Imagine going out for a regular night in a big city like Paris or Marseille, eager for fun and unaware of what could happen. The loud music, flashing lights, and the sound of laughter echoing through the room. But at some point, you meet someone, perhaps a charming stranger or someone with a friendly smile, who offers you a drink. What starts as a night of relaxation suddenly becomes a blur. You wake up hours later in an unfamiliar place. The first thing you feel is the cold, a piercing cold that seems to come from inside you. When you open your eyes, you realize you're lying in a bathtub full of ice. The pain in your abdomen is unbearable, and with trembling hands, you touch the area and find a grotesque scar. Next to the bathtub, there's a note. Go to a hospital immediately. Your kidneys have been removed. Panic sets in. Your mind, still confused, tries to understand what happened. Without a phone, without help, you drag yourself out of the bathtub, each movement a monumental effort. The room you're in is cold, windowless, with no open doors. The only way out is a fire escape outside the window. With your weak and debilitated body, you struggled to descend and finally reach the street. The relief of seeing daylight is replaced by the terror of knowing your life is at risk. You manage to get to the hospital where doctors confirm the worst. Your kidneys have been surgically removed. The police are called, but there are few leads. Fear sets in, and the reality of what happened weighs on you like a never-ending nightmare. The story of organ theft, often considered an urban legend, is a grim warning of how vulnerable someone can be. In the shadows of the city, there exists a dark market where lives are destroyed by greed, and bodies are treated as commodities. The Mysterious Attendant, driving along a deserted road in the mountains of southern France, you begin to feel tired. The darkness around you is dense, and the road seems endless. When you finally spot a gas station in the distance, you feel relieved. It's an old place, a bit run down, but a welcome stop. The attendant, an elderly man with tired but sharp eyes, approaches to help. As he fills the car with gas, he looks at you with a serious expression. "Are you alone?" he asks. You respond yes, but something in his tone makes your heart race. The attendant insists, "I think there's someone in the back seat of your car." A shiver runs down your spine, and you instinctively check the rearview mirror, but you see nothing but shadows. Suspicious, you try to ignore the warning, but the attendant insists on showing you something in the convenience store. Inside the store, he pretends to call his boss, but is actually contacting the police. Minutes later, sirens break the silence of the night. The police arrive and inspect the car. In the back seat, they find a man hiding, armed and ready to attack. You were saved by the skin of your teeth. The mysterious attendant is an unexpected hero, and the story spreads. Now, travelers who pass by that road know that sometimes it's better to trust a stranger's intuition. Catacombs, the harbinger of death. On the dark, silent nights of Brittany, there's a sound that no one wants to hear, the creaking of an old cart, driven by a spectral horse, guided by a hooded figure. This is the legend of Lanku, the Grim Reaper. They say that Lanku is the soul of the last person to die each year, condemned to wander and collect the souls of the dead in the following year. When his cart is heard in the deserted streets of a village, everyone knows that death is near. One night in a small Breton village, the mist covered the streets like a shroud, muffling all sounds. But suddenly, the creaking of Lanku's cart broke the silence. The villagers, paralyzed by fear, locked their doors and turned off the lights, hoping death would pass them by. However, a curious young man decided to peek out the window. He saw Lanku, a tall, thin figure with a hood covering his face, driving a cart full of shadows. The next day, the village was in mourning. Several people died. Lanku is a grim reminder that death is inevitable and inescapable. Those who hear the sound of his cart know there's no escaping the fate that awaits them. As long as the legend of Lanku persists, he will continue to roam the villages of Brittany, collecting the souls of those whose time has come. The Babysitter Mystery. In an isolated house on the outskirts of Paris, a young woman named Sophie was hired to take care of 2 children. It was a quiet night, and the parents left in a hurry, leaving Sophie alone with the children in a house that seemed older than it actually was. After putting the children to bed, Sophie settled into the living room, where the only sound was the crackling of the fireplace. The night was calm until the phone rang. "Have you checked the children?" asked a raspy voice on the other end of the line. Sophie, without thinking much, replied that she had, and the call was cut off. Something about the voice made her uneasy, but she tried to calm herself. She went upstairs to the children's room and found them sleeping peacefully. Relieved, she returned to the living room, but the phone rang again. "Have you checked the children?" the voice repeated, this time with a more threatening tone. Panic began to take hold of Sophie. She called the police, and the operator asked her to leave the house immediately. "The calls are coming from inside the house," he said. Sophie ran to get the children, but when she reached the room, the door was ajar, and the closet, previously closed, was now wide open, with clothes scattered on the floor. With the children in her arms, she fled the house and waited for the police to arrive. When the officers entered, they discovered that someone had been living in the basement of the house without anyone knowing. The intruder was never found, but the story became one of France's most terrifying urban legends. The Barber and the Baker, the Macabre Feast. In a small French town during the Middle Ages, there was a barber and a baker, 2 men who were pillars of the community. The barber was known for his precise cuts, and the baker for his delicious pies. But what the townspeople didn't know was that these 2 men were hiding a terrible secret. The barber lured customers into his shop, offering haircuts and shaves at irresistible prices, but instead of a haircut, the customers received death. The barber would kill them and send their bodies to the baker, who would turn the human flesh into pies. The townspeople praised the unique flavor of the pies, unaware that they were consuming human flesh. The secret was discovered when a young foreigner, suspicious, followed the baker to the bakery during the night. What he found horrified him: human remains being prepared for the next batch. He ran to alert the authorities but was captured by the 2 men, who tried to silence him. However, the young man managed to escape and revealed the terrible secret to the town. The barber and the baker were arrested and executed, but the town was never the same again. The legend of the barber and the baker spread, becoming a horror story that endures to this day. The story is a reminder that evil can hide in the most unexpected places, and that sometimes those we trust the most may be the ones who harbor the darkest secrets. The Headless Monk of Montmartre. In the Montmartre district of Paris, there is a legend that has haunted residents for centuries. Montmartre, with its cobblestone streets and bohemian atmosphere, hides a past filled with sinister stories, and one of the most well-known is that of the Headless Monk. It is said that during the Middle Ages, a monk from the Saint-Pierre monastery was accused of heresy. He was tried, condemned, and, as was customary at the time, beheaded in public to serve as an example. The body was buried in the monastery grounds, but something terrible happened. His soul did not find rest. Since then, residents and visitors have claimed to see a headless monk wandering the dark streets of Montmartre, especially on cold autumn nights when the fog covers the neighborhood like a veil. The monk, dressed in his habit, walks slowly, holding his own head in one hand. Those unfortunate enough to cross his path describe a chilling and suffocating sensation, as if the air around them is being drained of any warmth. They say that as he passes by, the monk raises his head and stares at the person with dead yet glowing eyes, filled with a hatred that transcends death. Those who dared to follow in his footsteps claim he disappears upon reaching the gates of the old monastery, as if trying to return to the place where he was condemned. Some believe that the monk seeks revenge on those who betrayed him, and that his spirit will only rest when all the descendants of his accusers have paid with their lives. Others say he is condemned to wander eternally as a warning of the fate that awaits those who stray from the path of faith. The legend of the Headless Monk of Montmartre is one of the oldest stories in Paris and continues to be told through the generations. Even today, in a modern and well-lit world, there is something about Montmartre at night that makes even the most skeptical people avert their gaze when they pass by the old monastery gates. After all, the story teaches that some spirits never find peace, and the streets of Montmartre may hide more than just the echoes of tourists' footsteps. The Lady in White of Versailles, the Palace of Versailles, with its opulence and splendor, is one of France's most visited landmarks. But beyond the corridors filled with art and the lush gardens, there is a presence that few tourists notice, but that many staff and local residents are well aware of: the Lady in White. The legend tells that during the reign of Louis XIV, a young courtesan became involved in a forbidden romance with one of the king's counselors. The affair was discovered, and the counselor was executed for treason. Devastated by the loss of her lover, the courtesan dressed in white, the color of mourning in some aristocratic circles, and threw herself into one of the lakes in the gardens of Versailles, where her body was found days later. Those who claim to have seen the Lady in White describe her as an ethereal figure, floating slightly above the ground, her white dress billowing as if caught in an invisible wind. Her face, though beautiful, is marked by deep sadness, and her eyes, fixed on some distant point, seem not to see those around her. However, they say that if she notices she is being watched, her eyes meet the observers, and at that moment, a deep melancholy invades the heart of the one who sees her, as if her own pain is transmitted. Palace staff report that the Lady in White is more active during winter nights, when long shadows stretch through the empty corridors. During these times, doors close by themselves, cold drafts sweep through the halls, and soft footsteps can be heard on the marble floor, though no one is seen. Those who encounter her feel an inexplicable cold, even on the warmest days. The legend of the Lady in White of Versailles continues to fascinate and scare those who know it. Many believe she is trapped in the palace, condemned to wander eternally in search of a love she will never find. Others suggest she serves as a reminder of the dangers of forbidden passion and the price one pays for disobeying the court's rules. Either way, those who visit Versailles at night can't help but wonder if the next shadow they see might be something more than just an illusion. The creature of the Paris Catacombs. The Catacombs of Paris, a labyrinth of tunnels and underground chambers, hold the remains of more than 6 million people. Built in the late 18th century to alleviate the overcrowded cemeteries of the city, the catacombs are a place of mystery and fear. But among the meticulously arranged bones and somber inscriptions, there is a legend that makes even the most experienced guides hesitate to enter the deepest tunnels. It is said that in the depths of the catacombs, where light never penetrates and silence is absolute, lives an indescribable creature known only as the creature of the Catacombs. This entity is said to be a grotesque fusion of flesh and bone, formed from the remains of the dead that pile up in the tunnels. It is described as a human-like figure, but distorted. Bones jutting out of its pale skin, eyes white as death, and long, thin hands ending in sharp claws. The legend suggests that the creature of the Catacombs was once a man, perhaps a worker, perhaps an explorer, who got lost in the tunnels and, unable to find his way back, succumbed to hunger and madness. Gradually, he began to feed on the remains around him, absorbing death into his own flesh until he became something no longer human. Now, he roams the catacombs, hunting anyone who ventures beyond the known areas. Those who claim to have seen the creature report hearing it first, a scraping sound like bones being dragged across the stone floor. Then, at the edge of their lanterns, a shadow moving quickly, like an animal stalking. Those who are caught are never seen again, their bodies becoming part of the labyrinth of death that stretches for miles beneath Paris. But it's not just the apparitions that terrify. They say that if you go too deep into the catacombs and hear your name whispered, it's the creature calling. And if you respond, even out of curiosity, it will know where you are and come after you. The catacombs of Paris attract tourists from all over the world, but many are unaware of how dangerous these caverns can be. Even the most experienced guides avoid the less explored tunnels, warning that there are areas where even they dare not go. The legend of the creature of the catacombs is a warning about the dangers of the unknown and what can happen when you venture too far into the depths of death. These urban legends, rich in mystery and terror, offer a glimpse into the fears and anxieties that inhabit the collective unconscious. Whether it's the organ thief, the grim reaper, or the hauntings of monasteries and palaces, each story is a reflection of the terrors that haunt us, even in the most advanced civilizations. They are more than just stories to scare. They are reminders that the world is full of mysteries and that we are not always as safe as we would like to believe. So the next time you hear a strange sound in the middle of the night or feel a chill as you pass by an old place, remember these stories, because who knows? Maybe the legends have a grain of truth, and what we consider safe may actually hide something darker and more frightening.